John Scott, Lindsey, Moppert, Jonathan Acosta here inside One Bills Drive as the Bills gearing up for the AFC Championship game Sunday evening against the Kansas City Chiefs. I joked I could buy real estate in Kansas City. I've been there so many times. It's a familiar opponent here, and I think that's a good place to start is 9 times, Jonathan, I think you said, out of the past.
Played the Patriots 10 times in the last 5 seasons. You play all of your division teams twice. This is going to be the 9th time they've played the Chiefs in the past 5 seasons, so only 1 game less than with the Patriots. They really are a division rival at this point.
And, Lindsey, what does that mean, and how does that factor into, even though the game is the highest of heights nearly, it's basically another round of Chiefs and Bills.
Yeah, and it's the 4th time, just to add to that, another little stat, it's the 4th time now in the last 5 years that these two teams have met in the postseason. Really, the narrative, John, though, is the regular season versus the postseason, right? The Bills kind of owning they've won the last 4 games against the Chiefs in the regular season, but then when it comes down to when it really matters, the Chiefs having the 3-game advantage over the Bills. It's like a division matchup, as they said. Josh Allen kind of really just sending it home with the fact that at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to who executes their game plan the best.
And in the lead up to the game last week against the Ravens, the big talking point was, well, how do the Bills change the narrative from that Week 4 loss in Baltimore, 35-10, their worst loss of the season, a Ravens team that looked invincible, a feeling that the Bills really didn't experience the rest of the year. They lost games, but not the way they lost them in Baltimore. And you had players talking about how they felt doubted, how Ed Oliver spoke after the game saying that he went back to how he felt after that game ended and drew upon that for that game against Baltimore. There's a similar level to that with this game, but not a regular season game like we were talking about, John, a postseason game. The feeling of losing in an AFC Championship game 1 step away from the Super Bowl, something that none of these players have ever felt. This franchise hasn't experienced in 3 decades. And so multiple players, Josh Allen, Spencer Brown, Ed Oliver, again, talking about the way they felt. Well, Josh Allen and Ed Oliver talking about the way they felt after losing that game in Kansas City after the 2020 season. Ed Oliver even saying, I'd almost rather put it in the perspective of not losing that game to not experience that over the elation of winning. Spencer Brown probably had the funniest line of the day saying the 2 ends of the spectrum is either extreme elation if they win or he's going to be by himself with a 24-pack. So that kind of just tells you that these players are probably going to be feeling the same way as fans win or lose in this game.
Yeah, the iconic photo following the 2020 AFC Championship game, Stephon Diggs watching the ceremony with the confetti flying, Oliver saying he remembers himself, maybe not in shot of people with cameras, but also watching that, seeing the confetti fly as he walks off the field. There's also 13 seconds that happened at Arrowhead the year later. So there's a lot of scars for this organization and guys that are part of this team in Arrowhead in the postseason. And to your point, they've never beaten them in this run in the playoffs. And they've kind of lost in a bunch of different ways. They got smoked in the AFC Championship game. We know about 13 seconds, and we know about some of the divisional round last year as well. It was a game that was closer than maybe people thought it could be, and the way that it ended with the Tyler Bass missing the field goal here. We will see how it all unfolds, but it comes back to you win this game, you go to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that it's not a big deal for the Kansas City Chiefs just because they keep going to them and winning all of them, but the Buffalo Bills, I don't have to tell you, they have not been there in 30-plus years at this point in time. And as good of a run as this organization has had under Sean McDermott, and certainly since Josh Allen became quarterback, there might have to be some pressure, anxiousness seeping in for these guys, knowing that, hey, these chances do not come all the time, and this is another big one.
I will say, too, Josh Allen kind of saying something I thought was interesting in the way of, as you talk about pressure, saying that when you are put in a situation like this where, yes, you have not gotten over that hump, you are 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl, he said that he feels like in years past there used to be a little bit more of an anxiousness or an eagerness to get there. He said this year, really, it's just a feeling of, it sounds corny, but they're just grateful to be playing another week. They're grateful that they have this opportunity, which I think is the right mindset that you need to have in order to get over the hump rather than, oh my goodness, panic, we need to make this happen.
What that says to me is maturity. Sport imitates life in a lot of ways. And, in life, they always say it's about not how many times you fall down, it's how you get back up. I feel like for this Buffalo Bills team, they've had so many scars in the playoffs with this group that inevitably has to make this team more mature as they grow from those scars. And I feel like maybe what we're seeing this year is the lessons that they've learned from those pains maybe manifesting themselves in a way that is more positive, because this team can easily loses that Ravens game last year, 2 years ago, with just the way it played out. They found a way to pull out that game last week. And so now as they go to Kansas City, it's something where they've been there. They've done that. They've experienced the pain of losing to them in Buffalo just last year. They've experienced the pain of losing to them in Kansas City. But at the same time, they've experienced playing them and beating them. No one really has had more success against the Chiefs than the Buffalo Bills have. It just hasn't happened in January. So for them, it's the finding the success that they've had against them in the regular season and just duplicating that in the playoffs without that pressure. And I feel like this team, maybe more so than in any other point in the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott era, is playing without that pressure. Sean McDermott even speaking to it today, saying that they're playing without that fear of losing. And Amari Cooper had a great thing on that too, where he plays a lot of chess, and they say you don't play to win chess, you don't play to lose chess, you just play chess and sort of let the chips fall where they may. And that sort of feels the way that this Buffalo Bills team is playing right now.
I was going to add, in terms of, you talk about maturity and just how this team has evolved, I think a big conversation revolving the maturity level of this team, and more specifically Josh Allen. He kind of had a funny little anecdote back there. He was asked towards the end of the game against the Ravens, there was a situation where it looked like he kind of wanted to lateral the ball over to James Cook, and he pretty much, he kind of smiled and he said, I wasn't thinking about it. Like, you know, and then he was asked, well, would Josh Allen a couple years ago, would he have done it? And he said, yeah, he probably would have. He said, but, you know, the angel on this side, he won. So I think that just kind of goes to show in terms of the team as a whole, but Josh Allen specifically, just the maturity.
And the Bills, as you said, they've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, it hasn't been in the postseason, but they've shown that as a team, the way that they play football, they can actually beat them, including Week 11 this season. You mentioned Amari Cooper. A lot is made. I made it too, of his lack of productivity, his lack of even involvement, not a lot of targets recently. He was asked about that, and you talk about like an enlightening moment here. Yeah. Haven't heard a lot from Amari Cooper. Sometimes he's soft-spoken. It was not the case today. I don't know what brought him maybe out of his shell or brought it more, but he was so dialed in and made a point. And I think he's a 10-year vet, a successful player, but I think there's other guys in this room who feel the same way as him of, I don't care what the numbers are. I don't care what my involvement is. He recognizes how precious a moment and opportunity like this is, and he's willing to do anything or not anything to get there. And I think this team, it embodies this team altogether.
And it's the gratitude, and from someone who he talked about, he's had the stats, he's had Pro Bowl years, but he's never experienced team success at the NFL level the way he is having this year. Now, what he has experienced is team success at other levels of football, in high school state championships, at Alabama national championships. And he said that the common thread amongst those teams that win the final game of the season, that get to lift the trophy at the end of the year, is egos, and that the lack of them, and that everyone on those sorts of teams is performing their job at a certain level to where they don't need you specifically. You are not more important than the rest of the team. And he said that that's where the ego comes down, and you kind of sacrifice it for the good of the team, and you just do what the team needs to win. That's what we've seen Amari Cooper since he's been here with the Bills, and to a larger extent, that's seemingly the way this team is built. They have the main superstar in Josh Allen, but it is truly a team without a star other than Josh Allen, bigger than the rest of the team. Just a team that goes out there and does what needs to be done. And they have different ways of winning every week, and that's seemingly a recipe for success in this league.
And I think it just ties in all together, again, kind of going back to Josh Allen's maturity, and we talk about turnovers, and he kind of referenced it today and talking about how important each individual drive is. We've heard so much this season how Josh has been, you know, going through his reads, and he's not forcing the ball somewhere, which is why he has been so much more successful in terms of limiting turnovers. And it's because of guys like Amari Cooper and, you know, Khalil Shakir and guys who say on a consistent basis that they do not care what the stats are, or Mac Hollins. All that matters to them is that they go out there and they win games.
Let's see how things go. It's funny because they've played each other so often, the Bills and Chiefs, sitting here and going matchup to matchup. I mean, really, what is there to talk about that we really haven't hashed out year after year? On the defensive side of things, Chris Jones is a game wrecker, as Spencer Brown called him. This Bills offensive line has been sensational. I think they've been, arguably next to Josh Allen, the most important and critical piece to their success this entire season, especially in the postseason. Can they hold up against a guy like that? Karlaftis is also another good one. Their front can do some things. I think the battle of the trenches is also going to be big. On the other side of the ball, my God, like I asked Cam Lewis, what is it about Travis Kelce? He's like, that guy just gets open. I mean, it is incredible. I know I'm watching other Chiefs games, and all the time, Travis Kelce is wide open, and you're thinking to yourself, how in the heck is a first ballot, maybe the best tight end of all time, constantly wide open? Let's see how the Bills deal with that. With Terrell Bernard back, with Matt Milano, who was not there in that Week 11 matchup. But we've seen it before. That's what I think is so fascinating here. Matchup to matchup, I think it's like, let's just roll out the ball and play.
Yeah, Bobby Babich on Monday said that he will go down as the best tight end to ever play the game, which strong statement, speaking very highly of him there. But yeah, as you said, Travis Kelce just has a way of unleashing this playoff Travis Kelce. I think back in that Week 11 game, I mean, he barely really had much of an impact on that game. And, and then you look at him last week again against the Texans, and he's always open. He is just always finding ways to get open for that Mahomes-Kelce duo.
It's Kelce, and the rookie Xavier Worthy has really come along in this offense, especially once the Chiefs lost Rashee Rice. We saw sort of a glimpse of that, I think, in Buffalo, correct me if I'm wrong, where up until that point, that was maybe the game where they most relied on Xavier Worthy to help.
He had the play down the sideline that could have gone either way, but he was just out of bounds.
And I think what we saw from that game and what we've seen from so many of these other games, and it's almost like what we talk about with division games, right? That the teams know each other so much that it's really going to come down to one or two plays and when they're made. That's how the Chiefs have succeeded not just all season, but through their entire run, is they play these close games, and it's the savviness of Mahomes, the savviness of Andy Reid, the savviness of Chris Jones and Travis Kelce that when the moment rises, they make the one or two plays necessary to win the game. And so I feel like we can really sit here and dissect X's and O's, matchups, X factors. I think it's going to be what we've seen so many times, a close game, a one-score game late in the fourth quarter, and can the Bills, like they did against Baltimore, be the ones who make the one or two big plays in key moments, or can they be the ones that force the Chiefs to make the one or two key mistakes in the fourth quarter to come out on top in this game? Or it has to be the fact that they go out and are up by one score and then some aggressiveness from Sean McDermott the way we saw here in Orchard Park. Hey, let's go kill the game and not allow Patrick Mahomes to have the ball with the last chance to win the game, because odds are if the Chiefs are in that situation, they've been there, they've done it before, they can easily do it again.
Whoever has the ball last. Lindsey, how do you think this plays out?
I got to be honest with you, John. Here's a little shout out to Sports Talk Live. Listening to the three of you on Sports Talk Live the other night, I think Vic had a really good point, almost about like this magic feeling, right? Like the Chiefs always find ways to win close games. Von Miller talking about it today in that Broncos game. Whatever they have to do, they win close games. I just feel like although they have had such sustained success throughout the last couple of years. I mean, this is their 7th straight AFC Championship. They're trying to do a three-peat, which has never been done before. I just feel like the magic runs out. I feel like this is the Bills' time.
Yeah, I think sort of what I was talking about earlier, the Bills are the team that have had the most success against the Chiefs out of any other team in this run in the last few years, right? They've shown that they can put a game plan together to go out and limit Patrick Mahomes, limit Travis Kelce, go out and beat the Chiefs. It's just all about putting it together in the playoffs. And you feel like, I don't know if it's law of averages or Murphy's Law or whatever, but you feel like eventually everything is going to come together that the Bills have done in the regular season. It's going to come together in the playoffs. And I think back to the losses that they've drawn upon, the scars that we talked about earlier, and kind of to Lindsey's point, just feels like this is the year that everything is coming together. I think Kansas City is the deserved favorite going into the game. I think they deserve to be 2-point favorites at home. Arrowhead is an incredible stadium to go play in. But I think if there's any team that's not going to be intimidated by the aura of Arrowhead, intimidated by the aura of Mahomes and Kelce and Andy Reid, I think it's this Buffalo Bills team. It has to happen eventually, so why not this year?
I think the mentality, too, about what we were just talking about, the maturity and understanding how critical each drive is, and what we saw from the Ravens game this past week about turnovers and how that really switched the flip for them. I just think that this team is mature. I think they're ready for the challenge.
I thought the winner of the Ravens-Bills game would be the one that would represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I maintain that here. I think it's going to be the Bills over the Chiefs. I think it's going to be another close game. But to your point, I think a lot of what we've seen transpire this season has been built upon what they have dealt with and maybe areas they've fallen short in the past. I think they continue to build off of that and maybe right some wrongs from the past. There's no better setting than Arrowhead Stadium against that team to eventually and finally punch your ticket to the Super Bowl, which is what I think the Bills will do. Sunday, we'll just keep it the same way it's always been, a one-possession game that'll have us you might be 24 beers deep, win or lose, depending upon what the heart is going throughout the whole thing. Of course, we'll have your coverage throughout the week and in Kansas City, and afterwards, we'll see how much more we'll be going a little bit longer. With Jonathan Acosta, Lindsey Moppert, I'm John Scott for Channel 2 Sports.